Welcome back to podcast Conversations on Philippine History, Politics, and Society. And we are your hosts. I am Lee Candelaria.
I am Vecal Porha.
At ako si Joselito Ebro.
We are continuing our season, Bagay-Bagay, Philippine Life Through Objects. And today we're looking at something that at some point in the 20th century reached 73 out of every 100 Filipino households.
Wow. Diba? So, it was so ubiquitous that you'd find it everywhere dati, sabi nila. So, it was stuck under pillows, sa lansan, sa mga hagdanan ng mga bahay, pinagpapasapasan around sari-sari stores. At syempre, kapag ayaw na, pinanggagatong, di ba? Or pinambabalot ng tinapa.
Yun. At ito nga ay yung comics. Yung mga bata ngayon, baka di na ito naabutan. Pero ang alala ko, dito ito yung mga maninipis na newsprint magazines. Tapos mabibili din yan sa mga tindahan ng dyaryo.
Mga newsstands, ano? Meron pa bang newsstands ngayon?
Wala na yata.
Di ba? Oo.
Sasara na nga yung Inquirer, di ba?
Tama. The Philippine Paper of Record. That's so sad.
Oo.
Yeah, but what fascinates me is how comics with a K evolved from simple entertainment into a complete cultural system talaga.
Yeah, it taught many Filipinos to read. It preserved our languages, it reflected our social struggles, and it even became tools of political resistance. And the economics alone tell an incredible story. Meron pa nga niyan dati yung Arkila system, yung magre-rent ka ng comics, no? Hindi mo siya kailangan bilhin, no? I-rent mo lang siya. Tapos pagkabasa mo, ibabalik mo. No? Hindi ko na maalala kung magkano, pero ang alala ko nung bata ko na mga 2 pesos a day yung rent ng comics, no? So, yung isang copy can really reach multiple readers. And it was a sharing economy decades, no? Bago pa na coin ng Silicon Valley yung term na sharing economy.
Ginagawa rin nila yan sa mga Precious Hearts romance na books. Yung Arkila.
At ito hindi lang siya kopya from American comics. Kasi meron talaga tayong na-develop na unique at distinctive style na bilang Filipino or mga Filipino artists na later makita at mapapansin din ng international publishers.
Oh, yeah. So we're getting ahead of ourselves here because this is so exciting. So join us as we trace the newsprint treasures from Jose Rizal's pioneering work in 1885 hanggang sa golden age of comics na naging kabuhayan ng libu-libong mga Pilipino.
Yeah.
At ngayon, sabi nila, the digital renaissance. So let's explore comics, the art form that refused to die.
To understand Filipino comics, we actually need to start in 1885 in Paris, no? Where a young Jose Rizal created The Monkey and the Tortoise. It was published in London's Trubner's Record. And sabi nila, this makes Rizal our first comic artist. No, 44 years before the commonly cited origin of comics. So, hindi ko alam kung nakita nyo na itong drawing ni Rizal, The Monkey and the Tortoise.
Yeah. Oo, nakita ko na yan. Pero, I mean, yung category kasi ng comics sa illustrated story, for example, di ba? I mean, sometimes when people talk about the origins of comics, they refer to the comics with the panels.
Yes.
And Anyway, the modern comics industry truly began on January 11, 1929, when readers of Liwayway magazine met Francisco Kenkoy Harabas. So, si Kenkoy ay isang Pilipino with baggy pants, suspenders, and sleek pomaded hair. So, his very name would enter our vocabulary, meaning funny person or jester, di ba? Kapag Kenkoy ka, ibig sabihin.
Yes.
Kenkoy, yeah.
Goofy, parang gano'n.
At ang creator niyan ay ang 18-year-old artist na si Antonio Santos Velasquez, who was working with the writer Romualdo Ramos. Galing sa hirap itong si Tony Velasquez, no? Pang-anim na anak sa mag-asawang Pangasinense at Cabenteño na nakatira noon sa Paco, Manila. Wala siyang formal training in art, but he took this correspondence course habang nagpo-part-time sa Banaag Press.
Yes, at yung kanyang workspace was just a small corner at the Liwayway's offices in Santa Cruz, Manila. But from that corner, he would mentor future legends feature komikeros like Francisco Coching and Mars Ravelo. So those first Kenkoy comics sold for 3 centavos each, while the full Liwayway magazine cost 12 centavos for 40 pages.
So, Romualdo Ramos, yung writer na katrabaho ni Tony, died tragically in 1932. So, 3 taon lang yan after they created Kenkoy. And, his death left Velasquez to continue alone. But at that time, Velasquez wasn't just maintaining Kenkoy. Kasi over his career, he created around 300 cartoon characters. And in 1947, he established Filipino Comics with 10,000 pesos from publisher Ramon Roses.
At yung Filipino comics na yun ang magiging foundation ng Filipino or ng Philippine comic book industry. So masasabi natin na si Tony Velasquez yung nag-establish ng commercial framework, samantalang si Francisco Coching naman ang nag-revolutionize ng sining ng art nitong Filipino comics.
Ito namang si Coching was born January 29, 1919 in Buting, Pasig. His father, Gregorio, was already a noted Tagalog novelist at Liwayway Publications. At nung 15 lang tong si Francisco, he published his first comics na si Bing Bigotillo sa Silahis magazine. And what Coching developed became the definitive Filipino comics style. Ito yung kind of bold and frenetic brushwork with baroque, ornate illustrations drawn in thick lines that made figures seem to move even if, of course, it's a static thing, no? His workspace was actually also very legendary kasi he was able to maintain 3 weekly series simultaneously, producing 53 comics novels over his 39-year career.
Grabe, no? Tapos lahat yan, mano-mano. Sakit sa likod to, no?
Yes.
Then, of course, came Marshal Mars Ravelo, who transformed comics from entertainment into mythology. Ako talaga, I would argue that Mars Ravelo ang pinakasikat na komikero sa kasaysayan ng Pilipinas. So, Ravelo was born October 9, 1916. So, magkaka-generation talaga sila, no? Sa
Yeah.
Tanza, Cavite. So, taga-Etivac itong si Mars Ravelo.
Diba?
So, he couldn't finish school due to poverty. So, nagtrabaho siya bilang janitor, water carrier, construction laborer, tapos by the age of 23, na-realize niya yun talaga niyang totoong calling at yun ay ang paggawa ng mga comics.
Yes. And his strong single mother who raised him alone became one of the inspirations for his most famous creation, no? At ito ay walang iba kung hindi si Darna. So Darna first appeared in Filipino Comics number 77 on May 13, 1950. Darna was illustrated by Nestor Redondo, isa pang legend, no? And Darna was an ordinary girl named Narda who swallows this magic stone to become a superhero. Kung di man kayo familiar dun sa pinaka-main premise nung Darna. By the way, a lot of people think that Darna was based after Wonder Woman. That's not historically accurate. Kasi Darna actually precedes Wonder Woman. Kasi 1939 pa lang, ibinibenta na ni Mars Ravelo yung idea ng isang Filipina superhero, isang na female superhero. In fact, ang pangalan niya dati ay Varga, no? But Mars had trouble selling the idea, and it was only in 1947 na lalabas itong si Varga. And then in 1950, nakaaway ni Mars Ravelo yung kanyang publisher. Kinailangan niyang umalis dun sa kanyang publisher, so nilipat siya sa ibang publications. But sabi sa kanya, hindi mo pwedeng dalhin si Varga kasi copyright na namin yan ng comics. So sabi niya, sige, ibahin ko na lang yung pangalan. Naging Darna si Varga. Anyway, masabi lang, no, kasi alam ko to lahat kasi nung undergrad paper ko tong si Darna.
Tama.
At mahilig ako sa
Nabasa ko
wartime
yan,
comics. Especially. So, yan yung naging thesis ko rin nung undergrad. Wala lang, share ko lang.
Yeah, so I think it's super interesting na yung concept ng isang female superhero ay nauna dito sa Pilipinas. At sabi nila, hindi si Wonder Woman yung inspiration ni Darna. Sabi nila si Superman daw yung naging basis. Pero yun nga pwedeng tingnan na yung karakter ni Darna embodied post-war Filipino hopes, di ba? Kasi sabi nila yung winged medallion inspired by the Philippine Air Force emblem and Ravelo's childhood flying dreams. So, I would say Darna is the most successful Filipino superhero. Diba? Imagine yung original series ni Darna, it ran for like 28 episodes. through May 26, 1951. Pero hanggang ngayon, yung impact niya, nandyan pa rin. Hanggang ngayon, nire-recreate pa rin siya.
Yeah.
At kung si Darna yung most successful Filipino superhero, masasabi rin natin siguro na si Mars Ravelo ang pinaka-impactful na komikero. Kasi bumuo siya ng napakaraming iconic characters. Hindi lang si Darna. Kasama rin dyan si Captain Barbell, Elastic Man, at maging si Jezebel. Pero imagine sa dami ng na-publish niyang comics, he created more than 500 novels, no? But he initially earned minimal wages. Noon ang mga comic artists got like 50 cents per page.
Grabe.
So, walang royalty yan. At itong mga publishers, sinisira nila ang original artwork para maiwasan yung pamimirata or pangungofya. At ang hirap rin ang buhay nila kung totoo.
Ang sakit na, no? Imagine
Grabe
yung
na.
original drawing mo na gagawing basis for the printed version, sisirain.
Yeah.
As in yung hand-drawn thing, ang daming nasirang artwork, no? Imagine all the hours poured into it, no?
Saka magkano na ngayon yan
and
kung
yet-
na-preserve, di ba?
Yes, exactly.
All because of profit.
Profit,
Grabe.
sobrang profit-driven itong mga publishers na ito, no? Hindi naman nabago yan. and yet, yeah, balik tayo sa topic natin, no? Super sikat ng comics, especially after the war, no? Latter half ng 20th century. Ako mismo, I learned reading through comics. Hindi ako tinuruan ng mga kapatid ko at ng parents ko. Ang ginagawa ko noon, bibigyan ako noon ng 10 pesos pang breakfast every morning. Bibili ako dapat ng lugaw or what, or pandesal. Pero imbes na bumili ako ng pagkain, bumili ako ng comics.
Talaga ba?
Naalala ko. Oo, ang binibili ko pa noon yung funny comics.
Panggubo yung buhay nila.
Oh, as in hindi ako nag-breakfast pero lumaki pa rin ako ng ganito.
Yeah.
So yeah, as in yun yung ginamit ko talaga. I was really starting then to parang voice out yung words na nababasa ko. So it was really comics that taught me how to read, no. I remember I would take it upstairs, tapos magkasara ako ng pinto, tapos magbabasa lang ako ng comics. And you know what? It's worth it, no? In a way, I was already intermittent fasting kasi naghihintay na ako ng lunch para kumain. But at least, no, natuto ako magbasa.
Okay, so backtrack tayo ng konti, dun sa pag-historicize natin sa comics. So we have a lot of these comiqueros getting a head start at the tail end of the American period. But the war will reach the Philippine shores in 1941, as we all know. So the Japanese occupation from 1942 to 1945 weaponized comics for propaganda. So in the Tribune, the official mouthpiece of Japanese propaganda during the occupation, we will see new serialized comic strips come out, such as Keizo Shimada's The Boy Filipino. At ito yung pumalit dun sa mga American comic strips. Kasi uso rin yung mga syndicated strips na to galing sa US. And as sabi nila, Tony Velasquez was forced to create the Calibapi family in January 1943, ostensibly promoting Japanese programs.
Pero wise tong si Velasquez kasi he cleverly subverted the Japanese censors. Sa isa sa mga strips niya noong December 7, 1943, he satirically depicted the character's revulsion at restaurants serving cat meat as chicken substitute. Kasi di ba, samot-saring shortage na yung nangyari before. So pati meat substitutes ginagamit na. So may rumors noon na pati pusa kinakain na kasi sobrang hirap ng buhay. So in a way, it was making fun of the normalcy that Japanese propaganda was promoting sa panahon na yon.
We also see subtle efforts, by writers at Liwayway. Liwayway, of course, is a mainstream magazine at the time, to secretly weave Filipino guerrilla heroism between propaganda pages, writing in Tagalog to evade Japanese censors who couldn't read the language.
At ang nakakabilib, yung mga mismong comic artists, they joined the war. As in, lumaban sila dun sa digmaan. Francisco Cochig himself joined the resistance as a guerrilla fighter with the Camagong unit. And Alfredo Alcala drew Japanese positions for American intelligence. I think, something needs to be said about the different forms of resistance. Siyempre, I think equally notable yan. But it must be emphasized na after the war, kumbaga lahat hirap bumangon, even comics industry. So the occupation devastated infrastructure. For example, Japanese authorities seized all Chinese-owned printing facilities, destroyed countless presses, and of course, original artworks.
At makakabawi ng kaunti itong comics industry, no? Especially after the war. Kasi nung 1946, nilaunch naman ni Tony Velasquez ang Halakhap Comics. Printed on scarce 6 by 9 inch paper and priced at around 40 centavos. Still, due to shortages. But then nag-normalize naman yan after that. I think the big next challenge would be ay yung martial law period na.
And in fact, perhaps its biggest challenge, no, at the time, when Ferdinand Marcos declared martial law September 21, 1972, Letter of Instruction number 1 ordered complete media takeover. Presidential Decree number 33 threatened 6 years imprisonment for publishing, and I quote, immoral, indecent, or anti-government materials.
Yes, napaka-vague and arbitrary ng mga ganyan, ano. And at this time, for publishers to get permits to continue printing, kailangan nila ng 20 to 50,000 pesos bonds. At iyon ay nire-renew daw every 6 months. Kasi tapos pinipirmahan ni Marcos personally. Grabe, ang laking pera nun, lalo na nung panahon ngayon. Magkano lang ba kinikita ng, ng mga comics, ano? So, nakapisana ng mga publisista at mga patnugot ng mga comics magazine sa Pilipino enforce strict codes. So, comics, for example, at that point cannot depict corrupt officials. Bawal lang kahit anong explicit content or kung ano man ang i-consider lang explicit content. No poverty descriptions, no social unrest.
Yeah. At during this time, sikat na cartoonist or political cartoonist dito ay si Noynoy Marcelo. Blacklisted siya pero nakakalusot siya lagi sa censorship kasi sumali siya sa state media. At doon ginamit niya yung subtle satire, yung lalo na yung kanyang character na si Ikabod. Daga itong si Ikabod. But other comics publishers without connections collapsed. Halimbawa, napilitan si Pablo S. Gomez na may-ari ng United Comics na ibenta ang kanyang kumpanya sa Roses family noong 1973. So itong mga Roses, nakuha nila almost 75% ng market nitong comics during that time.
Yeah. But at the time of great challenge, writers became more creative with their storytelling. Instead of writing about corrupt politicians directly, they would set their stories in historical periods with corrupt datus or foreign invaders. So everyone understood the subtext, no? But technically, it wasn't about the present government.
Yes. So, noong mga panahon na to, habang lumalakas ang pagko-comics sa Pilipinas, lumalakas din yung comics sa United States. So, talent exodus actually began even before martial law. Halimbawa, in 1970, Tony De Zuniga became the first Filipino at DC Comics, co-creating Jonah Hex and earning $12 per page. So, 24
Yan nga.
times the Philippine rate nung di ba? So, syempre, greener pastures. Talagang nirecruit niya yung mga kasamahan niya. So, Alfredo Alcala moved to New York in 1976 and Alex Nino followed. Tapos, si Nestor Redondo.
At itong Filipino wave na ito really transformed American comics. Filipinos started co-creating characters. Halimbawa, nabanggit ni Vic si De Zuniga, he co-created Jonah Hex and Black Orchid. Si Alcala naman, he illustrated Swamp Thing and Savage Sword of Conan. Tapos itong si Alex Nino na nung bata ay nag-drawing lang ng stick figure sa buhangin kasi wala silang pambili ng lapis or pen. He worked on House of Mystery. Fantasy horror ito na published din ng DC Comics.
Yeah. We can say that the golden age of comics peaked in the 1980s with 47 weekly comic books and 2.5 to 3 million total circulation. At syempre, driven ito nung Archila system, no? Yung pagre-rent. Kasi dati, no, as low as 20 cents daw yung Archila dati ng comics for 3 hours, no? And I think that's more than enough to read a short piece of writing, no? Entertained ka na nun, no? At yung mga issues ng comics no, na for rent, naalala ko to parang nakasabit sila sa sampayan, tapos doon ka mamimili, no? Oo, yeah. So, what a time, no? Very nostalgic.
So I think it's safe to say that comics shaped Filipino literacy in ways we're only beginning to understand. Kasi isipin nyo, during peak popularity, 73 out of 100 households possess at least 3 issues at any given time. So reading occurred everywhere in rice fields, staircases, comfort rooms, at even sari-sari stores.
Even language patterns evolved through comics. Yan, pwede talaga natin i-argue yan. Kasi yung mga nagusulat ng comics, everyday Tagalog yung ginagamit nila. Di ba?
Yeah.
So talagang accessible language. Kasi halimbawa, yung mga lumang nobela, mga matatalinhagang salita, di ba? So kasabayan ng paglabas ng nobela, halimbawa nila Amado V. Hernandez, ay yung paglabas nitong mga comics na to. So yung mga usual slang natin na talagang bahagi na ng wika, halimbawa, datung for money,
Yeah.
bebot for babe, girlfriend, or askad for ugly. Sa comics, nagsimula itong mga to. Ano. So, we can say that the medium promoted the national language. I mean, to some extent, but also preserved regional variations. Kasi sa
Nadala,
Cebu, di ba? Naka-Cebuano yung mga comics. Di ba? Sa Visayan language. And Hiligay nun, halimbawa sa Iloilo.
Yeah. And I think very obvious naman yung educational value no ng comics kasi hindi lang naman pantasya, horror yung pwedeng gawing content no. Pwede ring educational and it's important because countless poor Filipinos who could not afford to send their children to schools taught their children reading and values formation through comics pages, no? Syempre, educational organizations gagamitin din yung comics later on. And in a way, itong newsprint magazines, itong mga comics na ito would reach far-flung areas. Hindi naman kailangan ng any other technology. It can reach far-flung areas, especially those na unreached by formal education.
At ang laki ng reach ng comics kasi super effective yung pagmimix ng visuals and written word. Kasi 'di ba, kahit di ka marunong magbasa, ma-enjoy mo siya just looking at the pictures.
Yeah.
At sobrang effective siya to the point na yung mga politiko, 'di ba? Ginagamit nila yung comics like pag election na mumudmud sila ng mga flyers na may mga comics ng buhay nila, 'di ba? So bago pa magpa-interview yung mga politiko sa mga vlogger at sa mga alam mo yan,
Yeah.
sa mga
Journalist.
journalist, gumagawa na sila ng comics to tell their rags to riches stories. So, hanggang ngayon, actually, naalala ko, may makikita ka pa ng recent election, di ba? Ng mga ganong flyers, lalo sa lokal. Anyway, ang isa pang notable sa case ng comics sa Pilipinas ay how women comprise the primary adult readership noong peak nito. At ito ay, unusual globally, but it reflected Filipino social structures. Siyempre, hindi lang naman superheroes ang comics. Di ba? May mga romance comics. May mga may mga bold nga, di ba?
Oo, meron yan.
Bold.
Pero,
Lumang-luma
kasi
yun.
ganun dinidescribe ng tatay ng mga magulang ko yun. Bold yan, bawal mong basahin yan, di ba? Yung mga nasa dyaryo, yung mga nasa
Wow,
tabloid,
tama.
di ba?
Yes, oo.
Pero the genre of romance dominated by the 90s with over 50% of stories featuring love themes. That's sobrang interesting kasi sa US, kapag sinabi mong comics, superhero yan, yung mga nerdy stuff,
Yes,
di ba?
oo.
Pero sa Pilipinas, sikat yung romance na genre at isa sa mga pinakasikat na romance comics author ay si Elena Patron at she produced 350 plus short comics and 120 serials for over 20 years. And yeah, in a way, this is quite notable kasi it challenged the male industry dominance.
And speaking of impact, nabanggit na rin ni Lee kanina, yung mythology or the mythology of Pars Travelo created part of our national consciousness. Hindi lang superhero si Darna kasi she's the provincial girl who could save the nation. The ordinary becoming extraordinary. Or si Captain Barbell na payat, mahina, pero nagiging malakas. These weren't American power fantasies, but Filipino dreams of transformations.
Yeah, and these characters reflected our colonial experience then, no? Darna was of course fighting different enemies, no? Hindi ko lang alam kung aware yung iba pero hindi lang si Valentina yung kalaban ni Darna, no? Iba't ibang babae yon, no? Babaeng ahas si Valentina, babaeng lawin, babaeng tuod, no? She was fighting monsters, invaders. These were metaphors everybody understood, no? At very culturally connected kasi ang Filipino superheroes, come to think of it, lagi silang may implement na ginagamit, lagi silang may thing na nagiging source ng kanilang power. Like si Darna may bato, si Captain Barbell may barbell, si Panday may espada. So very anting-anting coded ito. No, that's one interpretation.
Wow, that's so interesting.
Yeah. So in a way, It represents that hidden strength within every Filipino waiting to emerge when the nation needs defending.
But of course, comics waned. Di ba? Siyempre, nung golden age talaga, kung kailan national pastime yung comics, iba talaga yon. Wala pang social media nun. Tapos, hindi pa lahat may TV. Halimbawa,
Yes.
wala pang Netflix. So, kung gusto mo manood ng pelikula, pumunta ka sa sinehan. Di ba? So, humina yung comics with the rise of different competition sa attention ng mga tao. But today's comics renaissance looks completely different from the golden age. Pero marami silang kakompetensya, di ba? Diyan yung manga, may manhwa, tapos syempre yung mga US comics with a C, di ba? Pero hanggang ngayon, yung mga Filipino creators, nandyan pa rin, syempre. Hindi mawawala dyan si Paul Medina at ang Pugad Baboy o Kiko Machine ni Manix Abrera. And andyan pa rin, kapatuloy pa rin. And there are efforts to keep the medium alive.
And a few years ago, meron ding 13, no? Nagkaroon pa nga ng remake niyan sa Netflix. Yung tungkol sa mga Filipino mythological monsters. And 13 became the Philippines' most talked about show in 2021. Proving na yung Filipino mythology's international appeal ay nandito pa. At the same time, comics-based characters are really enduring.
But I think that's really the challenge, no? Ang daming variety na kasi ng sources of entertainment. But I don't know about you. When I read printed comics, iba pa rin yung feeling eh. Kasi sa comics, you're looking at the story panel by panel, no? And there are those white spaces that you actually fill in with your own imagination. So in a way, pag nagbabasa ka ng comics, it's like you're also creating the world being presented to you on your mind. So there's something real, something visceral in that. And I think that's something other media cannot replicate. Anyway, that's it for our episode on Filipino comics.
Sa susunod na episode, ang pag-uusapan naman natin ay parang comics na hindi comics. Kasi drawing din siya pero depicting Filipino life. At hindi siya during American period or post-war or present day. Nangyari siya noong 1590s. So exciting yan. Abangan yan.
Don't forget to follow us on our social media accounts and visit our website at podcast.org for more information on our episodes and seasons. So maraming salamat sa pakinig and we hope you have a good day.